to Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse, a podcast exploring cult classics, subculture, and geek media. I'm Nick.
And I'm Dave.
And we'll be your tour guides for episode 2.5, where we this is a new format.
Oh, yeah, no deep diving here. This is a hot take.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple of episodes in the can ready to release on our normal schedule, the 1st and 15th, but they've gotten really big. They're like 3 hours long, and that's because we often are chatting on Messenger or whatever, and Nick will be like, hey, check this out, or I'll be like, hey, check this out. Yeah, we should do a little segment on that. Turns out the segment ends up being like 45 minutes or an hour, and then we have like hour and a half worth of content for the main topic of the deep dive, and then we have our normal intros and outros, and bam, 3 hours.
Yeah, and so one of our listeners, shouts to Sam, he pointed out that these the hot takes could stand alone as their own episode, and they kind of detract from our main deep dive.
Yeah, so rather than having an hour on something that's not part of the main topic, we'll just do some smaller episodes on the side. We're talking about trying to fit these in as regular episodes in the schedule, and sometimes if we get random stuff pops up and we're really into it, we'll just slide it in, just like this one. That's why this is episode 2.5. We went back and forth on whether we were going to just put this in the end of the cycle or just put it now. But since this movie just came out, we wanted this episode to come out soon.
Yeah, the hot takes by their nature are going to be a little less researched and a little more in the moment. So
yeah, this is kind of our casual format, I guess.
Right.
We do have notes, but they're not pages and pages.
Exactly. So with that explanation out of the way, you been doing any geeky stuff lately?
Honestly, I've been playing D&D, obviously, because you were there. Mm-hmm. And I've been playing some video games, World of Warcraft, and that's about it. I haven't been doing a lot of media consumption aside from for the podcast, checking out the old guard, including the comics. But that's about it. How about you?
Well, right now, it's July 26th. This is the weekend of San Diego Comic-Con, which is like the big daddy of all comic conventions.
Have you ever been to that one in person?
I never have. I've never actually been there.
We should do that. I would go.
Yeah, it's something you got to do at least once. I know it's a big circus, but it's something I definitely have always wanted to check out. But,
well, and my brother-in-law lives in Hawthorne, so we could stay with him.
Yeah, that's only an hour away?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. But anyways, right now in the time of COVID, Comic-Con is not happening in person. There's no one in the San Diego Convention Center. Comic-Con is happening in people's homes in front of their laptops, just like work.
Are they cosplaying, and streaming their cosplay and all that?
I think there is, because you basically, if you want to watch this stuff, you just go to their YouTube channel, the San Diego Comic-Con International YouTube channel, and there is cosplay panels. I've been just kind of watching a few panels. I watched the Bill and Ted Face the Music panel.
Oh man, I want to see that movie.
I know, it looks so cute.
Cute?
Yeah, maybe cute's not the right word. It's nostalgic. Yeah, it's fun. I don't know. Maybe cute wasn't the right word, but I think it is. I think it's going to be a cute movie.
Yeah, we'll definitely see that, and I think that one will definitely be due for a hot take.
Oh, for sure. Unless we do the whole trilogy.
Oh man, a deep dive on the trilogy? That could be 3 hours.
Easily. Yeah, so I watched the Bill and Ted panel, the IDW Ninja Turtles panel. I watched a panel on Charlize Theron and her action movie career in preparation for this episode.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's normally, these panels, they make their way onto YouTube, but in this sort of truncated fashion because they don't want to show you the special clips and stuff that only get shown at Comic-Con. But we're actually we're getting all the goods this year.
I mean, what else are they going to do with it?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, I'm not really a comic convention goer. I've gone to a couple of them, but mostly, I don't know. That's always been your thing, and I've not really gone just because it's such a zoo, and the crowds, they just put me off, and standing in lines for so long. But on the other hand, I really like getting the limited edition nerd stuff.
Right.
I like buying art prints, and I like buying compilations and stuff from the artist or the company, and it's nice to interact with people that you don't normally get to interact with. That's something
they're trying to replicate, not just with the San Diego Comic-Con, but other conventions, having virtual, air quotes, artist alleys, where the people that would have been vendors at the conventions have online stores, and you can buy their convention exclusive merch directly from them, or their art from them. And independent artists are really hurting right now. All of their normal places where they get out and kind of present their wares to the public are shut down.
Oh yeah.
So as much as you can, it's great to support artists like that.
Yeah, I've been buying music online, specifically off of Bandcamp, a lot lately, because there have been album releases. And if you buy it off Bandcamp, you're buying it directly from the artist or their label.
Yeah, so that money just goes right into their pocket.
Yeah, like when my band sells stuff, it's just straight up a PayPal deposit. It's that quick. So the only convention that I've been wanting to go to was Critical Role, is the D&D vodcast live play show that I like, and I think every D&D player likes it. But they do periodic live shows, and they often release limited merch at those shows. But obviously they've been canceled. They just started up again. They were off the air for like 2 months.
Brutal.
And now they have their studio all set up where everybody's sitting like far from one another, and they're like the split screen. It all looks like they're near each other. It's like 8 tiles or whatever.
But they're properly socially distanced.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of married couples in the group, so I don't know if they're distanced as well. But anyway, that's kind of off topic, but that's what we do here.
Yeah, that's true. We love our tangents. So where do they tour, or is that it's always at the same place?
They have a studio in LA, and they record and do that, and then they go and do conventions, like a live show. They fill theaters, like several thousand people, and they'll like they've done it in London and Chicago, all over the place. They were supposed to do one in Seattle, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But I wanted to go to it. But I would travel anywhere on the West Coast to go to a Critical Role live show, because I've never been to one.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's our banter out of the way, so I think we're going to take a little break here, and we'll be back with our hot takes of the old guard. Welcome back, divers. Just a little format note. We're going to start out with our spoiler-free hot take of the show. And then we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and really dig into things like we do. I talked about not doing spoilers at all, and Dave was not having it.
Yeah, Nick wanted to do an entire episode with no spoilers, and I hate watching YouTube reviews. Like I listened to an audiobook recently, which I'll talk about later, and I went to YouTube just to kind of watch some reviews of it, see what other nerds were thinking, because none of my immediate friends have read it yet. And I would say half of the reviews were literally just spoiler free, like when the big thing happened to the main guy and his friends. I'm like, oh, come on, this is lame. I don't even want to listen to this crap. So I did not want to do a spoiler free review.
Okay, so we are going to attempt to have our cake and eat it too, and keep the first portion spoiler free, and then in the second half, no holds are barred.
Yeah, it's hard to have a democracy with two people who vote differently. So, what's your history with this?
Oh,
I stole your line.
I know you stole my line. I was going to ask you, but anyways, we'll just rearrange it. I was aware of this book because I'm aware of Greg Rucka, the writer. He's a comic book writer here in Portland, Oregon, and he did a really great run on Wolverine, like in 2004.
Oh, nice.
Part of which was illustrated by Leandro Fernandez, who's the illustrator of the Old Guard. So I knew Radar, but I hadn't got around to watching the show yet until you mentioned it to me.
Yeah, I had no radar for this. I turned on Netflix, and Carrie, my wife, wanted to watch like a comedy special or whatever. And Netflix is where you go for comedy. Mm-hmm. And this was on their splash screen, when they're trying to push something, because this is a Netflix original movie,
and they put a ton of money into this.
Yeah, they put $70 million into this movie, so it was the top splash screen. And I was like, oh, I like Charlize. She's awesome. And I just kept watching the trailer that they push on you. Normally, I hate the trailers that they force you to watch.
You can turn that off.
Oh, man, I should do that. But this one was good. And I was like, oh, I want to watch this. And she was like, yeah, let's do that. And so we just literally opened Netflix, took the bait, and watched it. And then I immediately chatted to you because I didn't even know this was based on a comic. I didn't know it was this is really a superhero movie. Let's be real.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know it was a superhero movie when I started watching it. And then I chatted to you. I was like, hey, have you heard of this? Because Nick always knows about all the superhero stuff.
Yeah, and I had heard of it, but I really didn't know anything about it beyond that the first cover of the book. I just think the image, it's of Andy, the main character played by Charlize Theron, that axe really jumped out at me, and I would think that's so cool looking. That makes me want to know more about what's the story behind it.
Yeah, I liked it so much. I went online and I ordered the compilation because the Old Guard comic is only, it's just one trade paperback worth of issues. What is it, 6 issues?
Yeah, 6 issues. I think there's a second book coming that's in monthly issues right now, and they plan on doing a third, and then that's a wrap on the series.
Yeah, I pre-ordered the second book on Amazon because that it was up for pre-order, but funny enough, I couldn't even find the Old Guard first trade on Amazon. The only third-party sellers were selling it, and they were wanting $40, $50.
Oh, wow.
And so I just did an internet search. Just shopping.google.com is great because it just looks on all internet retailers. And I just found, Barnes & Noble has it for cover price. And I was like, good old Barnes & Noble. I've taken a free ride on their magazine rack long enough for years in my teenage years, back before everything was a blog anyway. So I just bought it from Barnes & Noble. It shipped to me a couple days later, and I read it.
Well, I got mine from I Like Comics in Vancouver, Washington.
I should have done that. I'm a dick.
Oh, yeah, you might. Well, no. If you got yours there, then I probably wouldn't have got mine because I bought the last copy. Chris, the owner, he's friends with Greg Rucka, I think, and so he knows what to push, and he had a nice stack out of them up on the front counter, and I got the very last one.
Nice. I'm glad he sold them all.
Yeah. So, but anyways, we're getting ahead of ourselves because this is time to talk the movie, not the comic. We'll talk.
Yeah, it's kind of all one. Greg Rucka is the comic writer and creator, and I was actually surprised that he wrote the screenplay. He wrote the movie. They didn't bring in some Hollywood writer.
I know.
That was a surprise to me.
That is so cool. That is exceedingly rare. To the point of maybe has never happened before.
And well, I liked the movie quite a lot, and so I'm glad that they let him do it. And having read the comic, there's dialogue directly from the comic, like the exact words are said in the movie, and I really liked that.
Yeah, it gives it a consistency of voice.
Yeah.
There's one guy writing these characters. It doesn't feel like new versions of the characters as much as it seems like a refined version of the characters.
Yeah, so we haven't really even talked about what's the concept here. And this is all like trailer material, so it's not a spoiler, but the idea is that there are these immortal soldiers that have lived through the ages, and they find each other, and they're kind of a team of highly skilled badasses that do good things.
Yeah, it very much, I mean, the obvious comparison is Highlander, and I don't want to belabor that too much because it seems reductive. It's just a shorthand. For us, for people of our generation, that's our go-to immortal warrior badass thing.
Well, I mean, it's hard to avoid that. They're people from history in modern times, and they're fighting bad guys. Whereas in the Highlander, they're fighting other immortals. Kind of the big paradigm shift here, because I look at everything through kind of a role-playing gamer's view, is I always wanted to run a Highlander role-playing game or something like it. But the problem is that the characters would be inherently antagonistic. But if you were to run a custom, like a homebrew version of the Old Guard in a game, they're actually inherently cooperative. So that's good.
You know, we used to do, not to tangent too much, we had that homebrew Highlander import to the White Wolf system we used to do back in the day.
Yeah, but there was only ever usually like one person playing a Highlander or an immortal in the Super Friends group with like a werewolf and a mage
and a vampire.
And of course it makes no sense story-wise or anything, but people just play what they want to play, and that's how we did it.
Yeah, I mean, we even got the Street Fighter stuff in there.
Yeah, that was lame though.
Oh man, I love my Street Fighter character.
I like Street Fighter game, but at a certain point it's beyond the pale. Yeah.
But okay, so anyways, what were your first thoughts on this?
I really like the kind of the operators who are, globe-trotting, highly skilled warriors. Like they don't just use melee weapons. They use guns, and they use their mind, and they're really, really intelligent. And I thought it was written really well, and it was really believable. Obviously, the combat was a little bit Hollywood, but that's to be expected because it's a movie. I mean, if you actually are watching real world room clearing stuff, which I did in the military, it's not actually that interesting. It's not action packed. It's a group of people surprise another group of people, and then they're dead. Yeah. So that wouldn't make a good movie. So this was not hyper realistic, but I liked the mix of guns and weapons and the whole deal.
Yeah, you're kind of echoing some things that I had written down too. I really liked, I call it the gun fu of it, where it's the mixture of like the martial weapons and firearms. And I actually as a non-military person and an inexperienced person with weapons, it looks pretty realistic to me. Like it doesn't trigger me as like, hold on, like that's kind of ridiculous. And they're really efficient. That was something that kind of jumped out at me. Like they're not just like a spray and pray sort of thing. Like it's like headshot.
Well, they took pages directly out of John Wick. They combined the like hyper efficient gunplay with martial arts, with movement and the way that they had them methodically do stuff. If you watch the John Wick movies, it's very similar. And then if you want to look at kind of the genesis of the first movie I saw that did this, I'm sure somebody online will tell me that there was something before it, but it was Equilibrium, which was the original gun fu movie for me, and that one with Christian Bale, super awesome. If you haven't seen that and you like gun fu, they literally make it like a religion. They're like grammaton clerics, and they have their pistols and they do katas. Gun kata is what it's called.
Interesting. No, I've never seen that.
Oh, so man, you should.
We might have to get into that sometime. Something else that jumped out at me, and I alluded to this earlier, this movie looks really expensive. It does not look like a made-for-TV movie. Like, this looks like it was intended to be a theatrical release. Yeah,
they have like helicopters and airplanes and like real mil-spec Humvees and stuff.
And on-location shoots like in London and
France and Africa. I don't know if that was actually Africa or if they just used Spain or Mexico like they often do.
Yeah, but still, it was, this was not filmed in British Columbia. Like, they went around the world to get some of these locations.
Yeah, it was really cool. I felt like this was very worthy of a big budget blockbuster action flick with I would say an original IP. I'm kind of a downer on remakes and rehashes. Like, this is an old movie but redone and new and awesome. I would way rather they find some fresh content like The Old Guard and get somebody like Rucka to do it, because we just don't need another Rambo. We don't need another Terminator. We don't need another Predator, even though I like all of those franchises.
That last Terminator was pretty good. I can't speak to Rambo Takes the Cartel, but it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, I mean, to me, those movies all reek of The Expendables, which is clearly a spoof.
Yeah, The Expendables is wonderful and hilarious. I love to watch those movies, and I laugh hysterically the whole time. Like, it's an action comedy.
It's funny because I love action movies, and I usually watch them, but I never watched The Expendables.
Oh man, that's a have some brews and just like make fun of the movie with your friends movie. You don't miss anything talking over it.
Okay, well, I mean, so it's very cell phoneable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when stuff starts blowing up, you put your phone down and get back into it.
Yeah. I did not cell phone at all through this movie. That's a testament to it. Like, if I'm watching a movie and I pick up my phone and I open my social media, that tells me immediately that's like -1 star.
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't really give you a lot of time to get bored. It's brisk. It moves you from place to place and theme to theme, and you got to keep up with it.
Yeah, there were some character arcs where they kind of delve into the backstories or the personal stuff of some of the characters that I was a little less interested in. But by and large, I was interested in I would say 90% of the kind of the soft content, the non-action parts of it. It was interesting.
So, I don't know is that all our spoiler free, do you think?
I think so.
Yeah. So obviously, if you haven't watched it yet and you're just here for the spoiler free part, this is a recommend.
Definitely check it out.
We're positive on this.
It's Netflix. Most people have Netflix or a friend with it, so it costs you nothing to watch this, and you'll really enjoy it.
Okay, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll get into our spoiler-filled portion of the hot take. All right, welcome back, divers, and I'm going to reiterate this one more time. If you have not watched The Old Guard on Netflix and read the graphic novel from Image Comics, pause this and go do those things and come back.
Or don't. I'm the type of person who doesn't care about spoilers. I will have something spoiled to me and still enjoy watching it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people like me.
That's true. I'm not one of those people. I love to not know what's happening, so which is part of why I liked this, because I really had almost no preconceived notions.
Yeah, I didn't either, and I thought that was great because I just watched it on a lark. But I guess let's talk about what we liked, and we can get into specifics at this point. One of the things that I really liked was the individual characters felt so developed. Like Andronica felt like the author had put a lot of thought into her and how she acted, and she really kind of embodied that whole movie trope from every vampire movie ever. The I'm tired of living, I'm just waiting to die, every day is the same. And that's a trope for a reason, because it's really a quandary. Like, what do you do if time is not limited?
Yeah, and she's I think it gets specifically into it in the comic, like over 3,000 years old.
I think she's like over 6,000 years old, but yeah.
It's insane, to go through that amount of time, and the loss of people that you would experience, and when we get to her in both in the movie and at the beginning of the comic, she's saying, like, I'm so tired of this. How many times am I going to go through this? Yeah,
and it was crazy how they humanized the characters while making them super. Like, they did not want to die, and they did not want to get hurt because it hurt. Like, dying was a miserable experience.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. There's a scene in the movie where Booker gets a grenade in his lap, and his guts are hanging out, and he's dead, and he kind of snaps out of it, and then he has to sit there and heal while his his entrails are sitting all over his lap, and being more or less unkillable. It's not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, and they use it for dramatic effect sometimes, like when Andy kills Niall in the desert to prove a point, and then in the comic book she actually like shoots herself to prove the same point.
Yeah,
because Niall is a hard-headed Marine who doesn't want to believe, doesn't want to go AWOL, the whole deal.
Yeah, and actually Niall is one of those ones where she's much more of a whole character in the movie than she is in the comic book.
Oh yeah, well, if you look at the comic book and you just count the text, count the words that are written in there, it's far fewer than are said in the movie.
Yeah, and I feel like the movie, and I've said this to you off the air, the movie feels like it's a refined version of the comic book. Like,
yeah,
there's certain things, and probably this will be probably the biggest spoiler that I didn't want to accidentally mention in the first half, is that after Niall manifests her powers, Andy's powers seem to go away, and she becomes mortal.
Yeah, Andy basically, it has been the leader of the team. She's the ancient, and she's currently the only woman on the team. And when Niall comes, Andy gets shot, and she kept the injury. She did not heal from it, and and it was made even more dramatic because she was shot by Booker.
Yeah.
In a big betrayal, which is of course the
big twist,
the reveal. And in the comic, it's actually foreshadowed more than it is in the movie. The movie, it's a bit more of a surprise.
And I think that kind of gets into where I say where it seems like a refined version of the story. It seems like, having already written the story once, there's certain things where it's like it's told better in the movie, like where it's handled more gracefully, and the suspense is built better in the movie, and that comes from having the same person write both of them.
Yeah, I really felt like the movie took most of these plots and expanded on them and made them better. Like the part about Booker's family and the reason he ultimately turns is because Booker's he stayed around his kids and whatnot as they grew old and ancient, and his body riddled with cancer, and wanting to know why his father wouldn't share the secrets to health and life with him. And so he literally was driven mad by having his kids and his family all hate him when they died.
Yeah, imagine your son dies in his 80s of cancer, and you're 35.
Yeah.
Functionally.
And so he wants to die. He actively wants to die, and so he wants to help the big bad villain pharmaceutical company find the secret of the immortals. They don't really give themselves a name.
Yeah, the Martin Shkreli stand-in.
Yeah, in the
Merrick.
In the comic book, he wasn't as Martin Shkreli-ish. He was way more bro-ish. Like, he had tattoos and he was lifting weights and stuff.
Yeah, it's a different take on that millennial
dick bag.
Yeah, tech CEO.
Yeah.
And that was played by Harry Melling. Who do you remember him from the Buster Scruggs?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, he's the guy that has no arms or legs that does like the Shakespearean sonnets, and then I think Liam Neeson tosses him in a river or something. If I remember, he trades him for a chicken. And
yeah, I don't remember that at all.
Anyways, that's a tangent.
Yeah, but basically that villain was that was actually a part that didn't really work for me. Is I felt like they made him too giggly geek evil. Like, he was too obviously like, oh look, it's the big bad capitalist. Yeah. Not only is he a pharma CEO, which of course everyone hates because of Martin Shkreli, he's the millennial version of it, and he's just all about the profits. I liked the idea, the concept of it could be possible that they're trying to solve the riddle of cancer, or they're trying to help humans out, like save humanity, but rather than humanize the villain, they demonized him by making it almost all profit driven.
Yeah, he's all they do that for the other scientists, like the other people that are kind of working under him. They're humanized.
Yeah.
But no, he's just a scenery chewing villain.
Yeah, he's really bad.
Yeah. So, but that's fine. It's a comic book, and comic books have tropes.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching an anime and then complaining about an anime trope coming up.
Yeah, exactly. What else you got on your good side, or do you want to get into some of the what didn't work?
Well, some of the things that really worked were the side stories for all the secondary characters, like how they kind of gave all of them, they gave them all their moment where it kind of explained their history, like the Crusaders and, and I forgot to write down her name, but Andronica's friend who was lost at sea.
Yeah, I had that pulled up. It's
Quinn, and that was tragic, and that was darkness. Like, I was just like twisting my face with like, oh my god, that's diabolical.
Yeah, I think that's something where obviously they handled that quite a bit differently in the movie than in the graphic novel.
It's totally different than the comic.
And part of that is the casting. Van Veronica Go. She's a Vietnamese descent, and the character in the comic is Japanese. So they rewrote that story. Instead of kind of race bending her to make her fit, they rewrote a new story that is more compelling than the one that was in the original book.
Yeah, the one in the comic book is basically just that Quinn was the first immortal that Andy ever found, and she was an amazing fighter and a great friend. And at one point, when they're out at sea. She fell overboard in a storm, and then she was never heard from again. So they knew that her time had come, her immortality had ended. And that's one of the big spoilers they don't tell you in the trailer, is that every one of these immortals will eventually die. They just don't know when.
Yeah.
So they just knew, oh, Quinn died then.
Yeah. And then you don't think about it again. But whereas how they handle it in the movie, where she's essentially executed as a witch, they lock her in an Iron Maiden and drop her in the ocean. And the because of the way they kind of connect to each other through dreams, everyone's sort of aware of her suffering at the bottom of the ocean, but then couldn't find her. Yeah. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, when she shows back up again... Yeah, big twist.
That wasn't in the comic. And after watching the movie, I was like, oh my God, when's the sequel? And I Googled it, and I watched it, like, I think the day it came out, or maybe the day after. They hadn't greenlit it yet. But, I mean, within the first couple of weeks of it being out, it had already been viewed 72 million times and was already in the top 10 most successful Netflix original launches, and so it was very quickly greenlit for a sequel.
And I think, well, I'll hit pause right there for a second, because I saw Warrior Nun is in that category too, in the Netflix top 10.
Yeah,
which I haven't watched yet, but that's another property based on an independent comic book.
Well, not to be the actually guy, but the Netflix top 10 is Netflix top 10 right now. The Old Guard is top 10 of all time.
Oh, I thought the top 10 was like what was getting the most streams.
Yeah, it's the top 10 most streamed, like, currently in the most. It's what's trending.
Okay, so Old Guard is both. It is both. It is one of their most successful of all time. It's currently in the top 10, and it is also in the top 10 of all time.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's going to get a sequel, assuming they can get the team. And Charlize said that she very much was interested in doing it.
Yeah.
Although she thought they should give it a moment to breathe and then do it.
Oh, for sure. And I think that's, treat it like a movie and not like a TV show.
Sure. And I mean, we live in a COVID world now. Just take it easy. We don't want anybody getting sick.
But I wanted, what I was pointing out with Warrior Nun is, historically there is this sort of prejudice against female-led action movies, like that they're not profitable, they're not fans do not like them, and then you have two in the current top 10 on Netflix.
I haven't even watched Warrior Nun. Is it a movie or a show?
It's a show.
Okay.
And I have not watched it either, but I remember the comic from the 90s, so it does, like, I go, oh, I remember that. I bought one issue of that comic book in 1995.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Well, I mean, like, Fury Road was a great example, a female lead action movie. And I think there are a lot more, and I think it's becoming a lot more, I wouldn't say standard, but definitely not rebuked by the fan base.
Well, yeah, there's certain people like Charlize Theron, and obviously we're going to talk Ghost in a Shell in a coming episode. So Scarlett Johansson, like, there's certain people now that they're proven bankable stars for these sort of movies.
Yeah, people like them.
Uma Thurman.
Yeah, they'll bring fans. They've already kind of proven themselves in previous roles. So hopefully that kind of becomes the standard going forward. So did you have any moments in the movie that really were highlights before we get into our lowlights?
I think we've covered most of them, honestly. I thought that I really enjoyed, like, the set pieces and the locations, the kind of storming of the pharmaceutical tower, which they moved that to London. I think it's Dubai in the comic.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really good. Like, it's very not Die Hard, because that's a one guy assault. But it's this movie felt in a lot of ways like 80s action movies that I loved as a kid, but with all of the things that make you cringe when you watch those old movies removed. Like, I got the same enjoyment out of it I get from watching an old Schwarzenegger movie, but there's none of the stuff like the casual racism and sexism of those movies. You don't go like, oh, well, that hasn't aged well. It's like, oh, this is like the now version of the thing I liked when I was 13.
And that's a reason why I much prefer these new properties as opposed to rehashing the old ones. It's just, you can do the tropes, you can click the nostalgia button, and you don't have to go back, and I think we need to give some of these new action stars, not that Charlize is a new star, but we need to give other people the spotlight. We don't need, like the 8th or 9th iteration of the same movie.
Totally. So what didn't work for you?
Well, I mean, there's kind of some nitpicky things just when you compare it to the comic. Like, I didn't like that they left out Andy's story with her mortal lover husband, I guess, down in Australia, where he had been a former slave, and they kind of talked about his story and then how she met him and they fell in love, and she stayed with him until he was an old man, and that was really humanizing, and I thought that was really cool. But I guess in the movie they didn't have time for a history arc like that would have been that long. Yeah.
And in a way, this is similar to my only thing that didn't work. And that is the exposition info dump backstories. I don't feel like they play well in the movie. Like it's a much different thing, the way you handle it in a comic book, where you can just do half an issue telling this story, and that doesn't seem odd at all. But to me, like when Joe? Is it Joe, the one of the other guys on their team,
who was Yusef the Crusader?
Yeah. And he's explaining backstory via exposition, and you get little glimpses of it. Like, those scenes always felt a little awkward to me, because to me those are just like too comic booky. Like, it doesn't, people do tell each other, as they get to know each other, they do tell like formative life events, but it's not like that. Like, it's not like, here's my tragic backstory, I'll also tell you the tragic backstory of the 3 or 4 other individuals that I cohabitate with. Like, it's just, that to me is too comic booky.
I don't know, though. It seemed like an exceptional circumstance when she's like, what, you're how old and you guys are how old? And so they're like, oh yeah, we met in the Crusades and blah blah blah. It seemed logical to me, and I liked the Crusades backstory in the comic, which was quite a bit of content, and they really shortened it in the movie, but they got to the point, and I thought that was actually a strength. I like the backstories. The only backstory I wasn't interested in was Nile.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's, to you especially, that's a fairly mundane story, I imagine.
It was just like, oh, you're doing stuff in Afghanistan, blah, blah, blah. This isn't interesting. And then it completely... No, I don't know. I don't know how the Marine Corps operates. I was in the Army, but there is no way that 2 people would go in to clear the building where a potential suspect is. They would immediately get everyone, the whole squad, and they'd surround the place, and etc. It just seemed totally weird. Like, why no flashbang? What's going on? Like,
we kick the door open, throw the grenade in, then go in.
Yeah, because the flashbang just stuns the guy or temporarily blinds or whatever, and then you can take advantage. But I actually wasn't interested in Niall's backstory much. I felt like they spent too much time dwelling on her friends being amazed at her dramatic recovery, and then I also wasn't super interested in her obsession with the cell phone, because in the movie it's not really a thing because Andy just crushes her cell phone and it's over. I'm sorry. In the comic, Andy just crushes her cell phone.
In the comic, the alternate version is she has a photo of her family.
Yeah,
and I think as time goes on, that seems less and less realistic because people just don't carry photos.
No.
So I think that's why it becomes the picture on the phone is, this is a millennial person and she doesn't have an actual printed photo of her family in her pocket.
True. Nobody would do that in the modern day.
The stories have to get told, and it's part of what humanizes the characters, and it's part of how you get yourself attached to them. And in these sort of ensemble action movies, even though there's always your star of the movie, everyone always kind of has their favorite person in that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, if you like The Predator, maybe Jesse Ventura's character is your favorite, even though he's not the main guy.
Sure.
So each one of the members of their team having their own backstory is part of what makes you engage with them.
It felt like they were really trying to steer the story to where Niall is the new leader, or Niall is kind of the new star. I don't know. They weren't. It felt like they weren't setting her up to be just a part of the ensemble, which is fine because she's the new one, and that's an interesting part of the story, is how do they find immortals. And it's way better if, rather than explain, oh yeah, we're struck with dreams and we find each other, it happened. It's better if you actually just go through the story of finding a new immortal. That's way cooler.
Yeah, and then they become your entry character, like the audience surrogate, the person you imagine yourself as in the story.
You joined the squad at the same time that Niall joined the squad.
Yeah. And there is like that symbolic moment of like she picks up the axe and that's that handing of the torch between the two generations, and it signifies that Andy is going to take a step back, still be the spiritual leader of the team, but obviously now she can't be taking the same risks as the rest of them.
And I'm definitely not down on that character of Niall. I think that it was cool how she definitely was like a badass action character who was a military vet and all of that. And I liked once she joined the team how she bought in and was like very in. But in the movie they belabored the point that they didn't belabor in the comic of, do I want to be a part of this? Do I not want to be a part of this? Is this my new life? No, this is not my new life. I'm going to go away. And they kind of they had her waffle just like maybe a couple beats too long for my personal preference. But maybe that's something that other people would find humanizing, but it didn't really land on me.
I didn't really have a problem with that because I think the whole trope of the getting the D&D party together, I think it'd actually be a little harder to get someone to walk away from their life and join a mercenary company like that.
And it wouldn't be that hard.
But in general, you don't just wander into a group.
Hey, Dave, you're an immortal. You want to join our immortal?
That all worked for me. And I think I like that better than how it is in the comic with, her just kind of going along with everything. I like her trying to walk away, but then realizing that they're in trouble and then coming back and saving the day. He and Andy both go and confront Booker together.
Sure.
I think it's one of those things where telling the same story a second time, you see opportunities of how you can move the pieces just a little more deftly. And I thought that was one of them.
I think they could have maybe hooked me a little harder if it had been like a spouse that she was really wanting to go and see her husband or whatever, because I can just tell you from experience, when you join the military and you deploy and whatnot, your family, while very important, you will go through a mental reckoning of I may never see them again. That is not a conversation that would have been a first timer for Niall. Niall would have already had that inner monologue and maybe even discussed it with her squad mates. On the other hand, the spouse connection, I think, would have got me a lot harder.
Yeah.
But that's such a minor thing. I don't mean to really dwell on the point. I just feel like they cut Andy's backstory with her husband. They cut a lot of the Crusade stuff. They cut much of Booker's stuff, but they expanded the Niall stuff when I would have rather they kept it kind of more in line with the comic.
I think the reason why you thematically, like why you cut Andy's backstory with her husband in Australia is to make the backstory with Quinn more important. You make it so she has one strong connection from her history instead of two, because it just sort of dilutes the story a little bit. Sometimes
you can say too much, and obviously Andy had many connections throughout her thousands of years.
Exactly. And again, it's like, I think because of the way pacing in a comic book works, you have all the time you need to tell those stories, but it's not the same thing. In an action movie, you have to be a little more judicious with those things. But you do bring up the thing about the way her the members of her squad kind of turn on her a bit in the movie, on Niall.
Yeah.
That's not really in the comic, and I don't... that didn't add much to me anyway. Like that, I didn't particularly care for that beat.
Yeah, I felt that was probably, like, I don't know, 4 minutes of movie that could have been cut.
Yeah.
And added elsewhere.
Expanded somewhere else. But, I mean...
Give me more Quinn.
As we are, this is just where we talk about things that didn't work for us. I don't want to give the impression that any of these little nitpicks were movie ruiners or anything close to it. It's just sort of, I didn't even do like a full eye roll. It was just sort of, we're getting an exposition dump when someone would start telling a backstory.
Sure.
But I understand those. It's hard to fit those in any sort of natural way into a story, and you have to do it somehow.
Well, a movie is a very specific medium where the expectation is that you're going to have a rapid pace, you're going to have lots of action, you're going to have regular scene changes, and you're not going to stop for 15 minutes of history before you get back to the story.
Yeah. So, all in all, these are not major criticisms.
No, I think it was really good, and I don't know if on Hot Takes we want to give movies ratings. We definitely do that in deep dives. What do you think?
Sure. I mean, I'm strong on this. I'm like a 3.75.
You think so? You think this is better than Dune?
Oh, yes. I mean...
Who are you?
I think as a movie, this is a better movie than Dune. Dune, not that... We're not obsessed with Dune. It just was our first episode.
I mean, I don't know.
It's not like Dune is the bar that all movies are measured against. But it's the bar that all movies we talk about are measured against.
Yeah, well, it's episode 1. I really like Dune.
But Dune is...
And I give that a 3.5, right?
No, I did it. I think maybe you were 3.5. I was a 3.25.
Something like that.
The thing about Dune is, although it's a really compelling movie and it's very interesting, it's ultimately a failure at telling the story that it wanted to tell. It was not David Lynch says he's proud of every movie that he did except for Dune.
Well, we'll see. We'll do a hot take on the new Dune, and we'll see if it can beat the old Dune in its rating. So you give this 3 3/4 stars?
Yes.
That's pretty generous. I was going to give it 3.5 stars.
I think it's better than a 3.5. But
I really do like it. But there's this weird voice inside of me that says new stuff cannot be as good as classic stuff. And I know that's such a curmudgeonly way to look at things. And I'm sure if any of our younger listeners would be like, yeah, Dave, you're an old dick. But whatever. I liked it a lot. I pre-ordered the sequel comic, and I will watch the sequel movie. So maybe you're right, but I'm going to stick with 3.5 stars.
3.5. I think that level of enthusiasm you're demonstrating there means you think it's a 4-star movie.
You think, because I literally own dozens of Dune things. I'm a beta tester on their tabletop role-playing game that's currently in production.
The Dune, the book series, is a 4 or 5 star.
It's 5 star.
Yeah. Dune the movie is an incomplete vision.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So as you're judging it as a movie, no matter how much you like it, how much you enjoy something is not equal to how
good it is.
How good it is.
See, we've had this discussion before. Like, just because someone likes something, does that make it good? Because, like, if you're gonna look at like the song Barbie Girl or whatever that got millions of plays and sells, it's not a good song.
Well, then how do you judge? Pop songs are a different thing.
Sure.
I think not to make this
it's not all along the watchtower, like it's no Cashmere.
Yeah, well, that's true, but it's a dance pop, like that Euro pop thing that Aqua does is a totally different thing than what Led Zeppelin does.
That's true. So, I mean, that's down the rabbit hole of good versus popular, which I'm always on the side of good, not on the side of popular. And Nick likes a lot of popular.
Yeah, I'm on the side of enjoying things.
Yeah, I don't think if other people enjoy things, that doesn't mean that it's good. It just, like a lot more people like bad beer than good beer. If you just look at sales, doesn't make it better.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, it's not that you don't have a point. I just don't fully agree, or we get caught up in the minor details.
So you're disagreeing with my 3.5, and you're saying that I'm a 4?
I think think that level. Here's my case for why you like it more than a 3.5.
Okay.
I think you texted me as soon as you were done watching the movie and asked me if I'd seen it.
I was laying in bed.
That's a sign you thought this movie was pretty special.
I did. I really like Charlize Theron. I think she's like a phenomenal, not only just action star, but actress. She puts drama into parts that may not have had the nuance that other people, I don't think a lesser actress or actor could have made some of these moments as impactful.
Yeah, she elevates whatever she does.
Sure.
So there's that. You bought the comic book, which that's not, you normally don't buy comic books.
I don't buy comics.
You pre-ordered the next comic book.
Okay, you might be right. Maybe it's a 4, but you also have to add in there, like, this, I was a super Highlander fan. Like, I owned every DVD for the series and the movies, like, and the sword. Like, my dad has the sword. But yeah, I was a super Highlander fan, and this is like newer in dare I say better?
See, that's the thing. If you were a super Highlander fan and this was a 3.5 movie, you would say, I liked it. It's not Highlander, but it's pretty good.
Ooh. We really got to watch Highlander 1. We got to do the first one. Just the first one. We can skip the rest and the series. Just the first one. But okay, so I'll buy that. Maybe I'm a 3.75 or a 4 because I normally don't buy anything for any superhero, anything.
Have I talked you? I've talked you up.
Maybe you talked me up. I just don't like superheroes. It's boring to me. I like vampires. That's my jam. And so these guys are closer to vampires in my mind.
Yeah, they're happy. They're kind of in a happy medium between superhero and vampire.
Okay, so you talked me up. Maybe I'll settle at 3.75 like you, and we can kind of make that the official rating. We should compile these in some place.
Yeah. Well, do you want to take a little break, and then I just wanted to highlight some panels from the comic, and we'll talk about those when we get back. Welcome back, divers, and we've got one more segment on the Old Guard. We're going to get our cartoonist kayfabe on a little bit and put this under the microscope, as they say. And I just wanted to just highlight a few pages from the graphic novel.
Yeah, he limited himself. We were going to do this page by page, but he put a bunch of Post-it notes in my book here and his, so we can quickly turn the page. I
gave myself one Post-it note per issue, just to highlight some graphic images that I just thought were really good storytelling. Mm-hmm. Leandro Fernandez and also the colorist Daniela Miwa do really a lot of the heavy lifting in this storytelling. If the first 2/3 of this podcast were us glowing up Greg Rucka, then this is where we shine on their partners in crime.
Yeah, I really noticed just when I was reading this that the colorist was really good.
Oh, yeah. Daniela Miwa does a lot of the heavy lifting. A lot of these, the things that Leandro Fernandez does with these stark blacks would not work as effectively without the colors. The colorist does a lot of the storytelling here.
Yeah, this is really good.
So right now we're looking at it's labeled Chapter 1, but this was the cover of the first issue. This silhouette of Andronica holding that battle axe, the double crescent battle axe, and she's got like a M16 strapped to her back and 14-eye Doc Marten boots with the laces picked out real nicely.
And they're ladder laced.
Yeah, that just school. Is so... That image is really strong, super iconic. She's standing in this like strong stance, and that gets your attention. You had a comment about the axe?
Oh, I was just saying that we were talking off air about where she's from. She's Scythian, which is kind of a Southeast European kind of a in the ancient Ottoman area. Mm-hmm. And this axe is not a historically accurate axe for that region and that time period. And that's totally okay. I don't think they were trying to play it off as an ancient axe. It seems like it is a modern rebuild of a type of weapon she enjoyed.
Yeah, that's how I take it too, especially with that hole in the middle. It looks like this is something that is probably like cut out of a solid piece of metal rather than something that was hammer forged.
Probably, yeah. This is probably die cast or something.
Yeah, and so that storytelling wise, like that gives us this sort of 1 foot in ancient history and 1 foot in the modern times. I think thematically that works really well for the character.
Yeah, battle axe and M4 carbine rifle together is sort of like the old and the new.
Yeah, and then just while we're here, on the other page, you get this sort of montage of her history, where you're cutting back between her kind of moving through lovers or distractions, essentially in the modern times. You see, she's in Seattle, she's in Japan, and she's in some dive bar or a hotel next to a dive bar somewhere, and you're cutting that back and forth with her in ancient times, one tit out, battle axe and scimitar, just like cleaving fools.
That would be a kukri, or if it were longer, it would be different. But yeah, that's kukri.
What? It's a scimitar in the next panel, right? Am I right?
Yeah, that's a scimitar. If she's the armored one.
Yeah, I think that's her with the helmet, and she's got a crusader coming up behind her.
I don't want to be the well actually guy, so
no, that's what this is about.
So yeah, the first one, if it's hard to tell because of the perspective, it's either a kukri or a falcata, which is just a bigger version.
And I think we can take it. She's chopping up Spartans in the first panel.
She's fighting Greeks, which is geographically appropriate.
Yeah, and then she's about to get stabbed from behind by a crusader. In the next
she's one of the Muslim side of the Crusader War in the third panel. So, all right, let's move on because nobody else can see these pictures.
Well, I'll put these up probably on the Tumblr, maybe also on the Pinterest. If you're not following our Tumblr, visual companions for all of the episodes are up there, and right now we have like 1 follower. So
Nick's the Tumblr, Nick's the everything social media guy. I occasionally post on Twitter for us. But yeah, definitely check it out because he puts up a lot of stuff, including non-show content, like cool like links, like check this out, blah blah blah. That's nerdy related, but not necessarily something we talk about.
Yeah, and so here we've got the struggle between Joe, the defending Muslim, and Nikki, the Crusader. I forget their ancient names.
It's like Yusuf and Nicolo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. And we're watching them fight in silhouette, and they're having this brutal fight with Nicolo is bashing Yusuf, bashing his head into a rock, and then they kind of collapse in each other's arms. And then on the next page, we come back to them in modern times, and they're sleeping together, and they're spooning up, like basically in the same position they died in. And I think it's really cinematic, like the way it ties in from this brutal ancient history that they had with each other, and now like how tender they are in the modern times.
Yeah, and I really like the art on this page where it's black silhouette with blue background, and those panels are all over an orange background and field division, and so it has this really nice kind of simple color palette.
Yeah, like it's if there is it's a tasteful way to show someone bash somebody's head in with a rock. You know what I mean? Like, because if there's another way to do this where it becomes gore porn, and that's not the point of it is not to fixate on the violence and as much as the energy and the emotion of it, because this is coming out of a couple more pages of the Crusade battling. And they're really dynamic. Like, you really feel the movement and the fury of these two armies bashing into each other. And these are the last 2 survivors of the 2 armies, and they're still alive to this day in our modern times.
And these backstory parts of the comic is actually one of my favorite pieces. So I really like that. So we're going to move on to the third one.
We are moving on to the third one. And here we've got Andy taking out mercenaries in one of their safe houses in France. This is the scene didn't make it into the movie exactly in the same form because it's too similar, I guess, to a scene in Atomic Blonde where Charlize Theron works her way through a bunch of mercenaries down a stairwell. So they didn't want to retread an action sequence that she's already done in another movie.
Yeah, I mean, she did work her way through these mercenaries, just not on a stairwell.
Not in a stairwell, yeah.
Like in a church cathedral looking place.
Which I think worked really effectively also.
Yeah, it was cool.
But I like the way the panels are laid out. So like in comics, like panels are time, right?
Yeah.
And the way the panels move, it follows the twisting of the stairwell, and the panels are they're wide as she is going across from one half of the stairwell to the other, and then they get longer as she's descending down the stairs, and it gives you the feeling of moving down the stairs while you read it. That's really that's high level cartooning. That's not an easy thing to do, to give the reader, which, that's sort of, it's passive. You're sitting in your chair looking at this, give you the sense of moving down the stairs.
Yeah, this is pretty darn dynamic. I like it. It's a really cool moment. And honestly, when I'm reading a comic, I look at this stuff and then I turn the page. I don't spend a lot of time gazing at it and appreciating it for what it is, but it is good.
I think this... Obviously, I'm not a professional illustrator or cartoonist by any means, but I do a little cartooning, and so when I see things executed really well like this, like I can reverse engineer this, like how did they do it, but I couldn't create it myself. So I'm just sort of in awe of the, I don't know, the talent that goes into this. So the one I wanted to pick out next, and I wish these had page numbers so I could tell you what pages we were on, but it's a picture of Andy's her significant romantic partner, her husband. And we're getting his backstory. And he's in sort of like a Australian cowboy outfit, you know, with the duster and the hat. And the panel is mostly in white, and then he becomes colorized as you move down the panel.
Yeah, it fades from white to tan to brown.
And that is giving you essentially like a lens flare. They're creating a lens flare. You're looking at him with the sun behind him, and
this is also like miniature painting. You determine the light source, and then you put the lightest highlights toward it, and then shade down. So
this is one of those things where if this image in black and white would still work, but this is where the colorist Miwa, where she's really doing the heavy lifting. She's giving you that impression of. Oh, you imagine, like, if you were looking at this in real life, it'd be hard to be looking at him because of where the sun is behind him.
Yeah, you know what kind of strikes me about this picture, and then it makes me think about the rest of the black color blocking, is that they don't do any of that kind of old school cross hatching or the lines that are used in order to show shadows. It's really blocked out.
Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because Fernandez, it's a heavy black line, clean style. He doesn't really do any cross hatching. There's no like zipatone shading that's going on. The colorist provides all of the shading essentially.
This is really good.
Yeah, high level work. Like, these are really good cartoonists.
All right, so next page.
Next up, we have our group falling out of the tower. They've just sieged the pharmacy tower in Dubai, and they're making their escape in an expedient but brutal fashion.
Yeah,
and they've jumped out, and I think this is it's another version of using the panels to do the movement. Like, you have these two wide panels at the top for your free fall as they're falling, and then as the fall is getting more urgent and they're going faster, the panels start lengthening
and narrowing.
Yeah, and so you get that impression of we're coming up on terminal speed and impact, and then we get a really gruesome impact, right? Like I talked about earlier, sparing the gore porn. This is the opposite. Niall's got her eyeball hanging out by the optic nerve. She's missing teeth. Like, it is grisly. It's so gruesome.
And this is one of the pages that really made me laugh, like the falling page, where I believe it's Andy is narrating it. She just says, here's something else I've learned. Any fall long enough that you can think about the fact that you're still falling is by definition too far.
Yeah. It's like, oh, this is going to be bad.
It's like, what? I'm still falling? Oh, no.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that struck me when I read this, and it also kind of struck me in the movie, was comparing this to Highlander. What are the physical limitations for these guys? Like, what happens if one of these guys gets wood chippered? Does it come back?
I don't know. Probably not. It's hard.
I don't know. What if the head gets cut off?
Well,
one head got blown apart. Yeah, but not completely.
They do get shot through the head, so it's not zombie rules, right? So it's not if the brain gets destroyed, you're dead. I'm going to assume you get your head cut off. Maybe it regrows.
Yeah.
Well, probably not the head. Does the body regrow onto the head? All a Deadpool?
Question. Can we get Rucka on this podcast?
He's been doing a lot of promotion. He might come talk to us.
He lives in Portland. We'll buy him a beer.
All right, and I gave myself one more, and it's just that it's a splash page of the whole group.
With really good coloring.
The muzzle flare off of Andy's rifle is got her all lit up. Actually, the muzzle flare off of everybody's rifle is illuminating their faces.
Yeah, so each one of them has a discrete light source for the image, and their light source is their muzzle flash. So the front of them is white, and then it goes into a mid-tone, like this kind of salmon, and then purple, and then or blue, and then their back is black.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
And so that's Miwa again doing the heavy lifting of giving depth to this image. But the image, the other thing that really why this jumped out at me is the way they're moving through the space on the page towards the reader. Everyone is in this is all happening at the same time, but there's the impression of them rushing towards you. Mm-hmm. That's a difficult thing to do. Just drawing the perspective of the room is sort of a difficult thing to do as an illustrator, but to give that sense of dynamic movement on the static page, you're looking at a still image that is about to run over you. And, that jumped out at me as something I should highlight.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So that's all of me talking about pictures that I have prepared for you.
Yeah, hopefully other people will like this enough to go and pre-order, or not order it online, or get it at your friendly local comic book store. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciated at the end of it that there's some actual just like set art pieces. Mm-hmm. Like they've got one of like Booker and then the whole group. And these are former covers and the variant covers of different editions that came out. And so that's really cool that you get to see all of the variant covers.
Yeah, I like that. You're looking at that one where it's all of their ancient weapons together. Yeah. I thought that was a cool one.
Yeah, so I really thought this was a value add for me. Having them in their original gear, like mm-hmm. the ancient three have their melee weapons, and then Booker and Nile have guns because they aren't of that era.
Yeah,
and I liked that art at the end. So did you have anything else that you wanted to add for the Old Guard, which we decided was a 3 3/4 movie, and I don't even know how to rate a comic because I barely read them.
Do I have anything to add? No, man, I think we covered this pretty thoroughly.
All right. So that leads us to our final segment. What are you into right now?
Well, right now, what I'm into, and I'm just barely into this right now, is that new game, Ghosts of Tsushima.
Man, I wanted to play that so bad.
You gotta buy a PlayStation.
I'm a PC gamer, and it's like it hurts me so bad when there's PlayStation exclusives. There's been I think this is the 4th game that's PlayStation exclusive that I was drooling over that I still can't play.
I think you're getting a new house. You're going to have a big TV in there, probably. Black Friday's coming up. Buy a PS5.
Yeah, I might ask for that for Christmas or something.
Santa will bring it for you?
My wife will buy it for us because she's a gamer too. But yeah, this game looks so rad. So tell me about it from a non-player's perspective.
Okay, so if this is a big sandbox game, I've just filled up my first bucket of sand. I have not built even a rudimentary castle yet. But basically, the setting, it's in 1274 on Tsushima Island, which is it's a small island in between the main island of Honshu and the Korean Peninsula. If you were launching an invasion from the mainland into Japan, it's the first island you're going to hit.
Sure.
And so that's the premise of the game, is that the Mongols have begun an invasion of Japan, and they're taking over this island. It's their first foothold.
Okay.
And so you're a samurai, and you are essentially trying to liberate your island. Your character is Jin Sakai, voiced by Daisuke Tsuji. And you're trying to liberate your island from the Mongols. And it's it's like a magically realistic version of Japan. Like,
okay.
You know, you follow the wind when you like if you set a place on the map that you want to go to, rather than having like an indicator on a little map screen. The wind is blowing towards the destination, and so it's like a semi mythological type of ancient Japan.
Okay, that sounds really cool. I mean, what's the gameplay like? Is the fighting good? Is it that on rails fighting like Arkham?
It's not quite like that. Not quite like Arkham. Although, I mean, you might find it a little similar, but it's not. It's not entirely a motion game. Like the fighting in the Arkham games or even the Spider-Man game is very much a push the button at the moment. This is more of a martial arts fighting game where you're in different like sword stances, and you learn more sword stances.
Okay, that sounds cool.
So, you know, right now I'm just like kind of got my first and a little bit of my second skill tree on different sword stances filled up.
Oh,
and you ultimately can learn like several. So it's about using the right sword techniques for the right enemy and things like that.
Do you like upgrade your gear like in other games? Like you get a better sword or better armor or whatever?
Yes. And you can really customize it. So like the game, like it's called Ghost of Tsushima. Mm-hmm. So you're like the last survivor or close to the last survivor of your defending army that the Mongols have just slaughtered. And this isn't too much of a spoiler because this is the very beginning of the game.
Sure.
Your uncle is like the lord of the prefecture, and he's been taken captive by the Khan. And ultimately, you're trying to rally enough forces that you can siege the castle and liberate him. But the idea of this idea of the ghost is something that comes up again and again as you learn more like stealthy sort of ninja assassin type techniques, and there's a balance in the game. I'm doing all these hand gestures that make bad radio, but there's a balance in the game between how much of a straight up samurai you are or how much of an assassin you are, or quotes ghost.
So can you be a stealth archer like in Skyrim?
Yes, you can.
Everyone's a stealth archer.
And that was totally my plan. Like when I watched gameplay, I was like, "Oh yeah, full ghost. What are you talking about? I'm not gonna be a samurai at all." But then you introduce this honor element, which is like something that was in Red Dead, also the honor of the character.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, well, do I want to go up and gank people in the back and lower my honor?
Nick is lawful good in real life.
Yeah,
and so he can't stand to play an evil guy.
So I was gonna play it like I played Skyrim, which is like I kill everyone with my bow and arrow before I even enter the castle.
Because there's no honor system, there's no morality.
Yeah. And if it's going to affect my honor to do that, like now I have to actually make like role play decisions.
Well, that's the best way to play the game is with the role play. Because if you just go and it's just a slaughter fest, that's way less fun.
Yeah, like I just get the best gear and I just grind out missions, and that's not what makes these sandbox games so engaging and engrossing. What pulls you into them is those storylines.
Oh yeah, and I will 100% play this game at least twice full through as a full samurai and as a full ghost. I do that with games like when we both fell deep into the Fallout 4 hole. Mm-hmm. I played through each of the factions completely on separate playthroughs. I
play every faction up until the point that you can. But I only have done one ending for Fallout. I've only done the railroad ending. Yeah,
you're the type that sticks with one character forever and just tries to do everything, whereas I like to start fresh with a brand new build. Like I had a sniper build, I had a melee sneaking build, and then I think my other one was like a pistol build or something like that.
I do kind of think about playing because I didn't have it before, but now I do have the PlayStation, playing Skyrim again in VR.
Oh man, That's interesting. Does this game, Ghosts, does it offer anything like that? VR capability?
No, I don't. It does not, which is too bad because it is a world that I would like to walk around in real life. So
is the PlayStation 5 going to have VR capability and all that stuff?
I believe so. I mean, hopefully with all the same equipment, because that would be
a bummer.
It would just be evil if you put in hundreds of dollars or $100+ into VR equipment and then it was like, buy new PS5 VR equipment.
Honestly though, if the PS5 VR equipment is a hardware upgrade, it's worth it. It's worth it. I'm okay with them upgrading technology and having you buy better things, but if they just make you buy what amounts to the same thing with a different plug, that's horrible.
Yeah. I did have to, when I got my PS5, I could not use my Xbox Street Fighter controllers with it. I had to buy PlayStation Street Fighter controllers, and they're just USB controllers. I could plug either of them into my computer and use them.
When did the PS5 come out? I realize we're supposed to be talking about this game.
PS5 has not come out yet.
I thought PS5 was just getting leaked right now. Cause
it's this holiday season. It's coming out.
All right, yeah.
So that's why I felt safe saying Black Friday, because I think that's probably when you drop it.
Yeah, I usually, like last year, I got a nice cell phone for Christmas. I think a PS5 will be about the same price as a high-end cell phone.
Yeah, I mean, really, when you look at it like that. And you're a PC gamer, you drop bills on your
well,
computer.
I used to build my computers from scratch and upgrade all the pieces and everything, but my wife converted me over to Laptop Nation since we don't play the high-end video games. We play World of Warcraft, let's be real. Mm-hmm. That's like, you could play that on like a upgraded toaster. So
it seems a little, because I dabbled a little bit in it the other day, and it seems a little glitchy on my computer.
Okay, yeah, but yours is like a downgraded toaster.
It only toasts one side of the bread.
Yeah. That's a pretty old machine, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at this point, yeah, they get old fast.
I think if you buy a new laptop within every 3 to 4 years, you're going to always be able to play a modern game. As long as you make sure you get a discrete graphics card, this should be fine. That's what I did. I bought a Dell. I mean, I would love to have Dell sponsor us to use our thing, but that's never going to happen because they don't sponsor anything.
Well, don't say never.
That's true. All right, so anything else on this really cool game?
I'm not deep enough into it to tell you much more about it, but it seems really cool.
Has it usurped Red Dead Redemption from your life?
Yeah, I have not. Actually, I haven't gone back to Red Dead since I went back to work full time.
Oh, man.
I'm in the middle to high 80s of completion on Red Dead.
That's probably enough.
There's achievements that I haven't done, but there is not a lot of mission. Like, there's maybe 2 or 3 encounters that I've not triggered yet.
And you've done all the main plot, right?
Oh yeah, I've gone through all the story I can find. There's just a few randos out there that I've never talked to still.
That's really, for me, I'm not the type that goes through and does every single thing and every achievement. Mm-hmm. I finish the story to my satisfaction, and then I started again with a different character. If
I wasn't on administrative leave from work at that time, I probably wouldn't have gone through and caught all the legendary fish and hunted the legendary beasts and stuff. Man. But because I did. That was
cool, though.
It was a lot of fun.
All right. So, well, that's good. I'm glad that you gave a positive review to that game. Hopefully PS5's backward compatible so I can play it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. It's because it's going to still be a new game when the PS5 comes out.
Sure, yeah.
But what are you into right now?
Well, I'm glad that this came up on a hot take because we're interrupting our release cycle to toss this in as episode 2.5 because the Dresden Files Peace Talks, book 16 in the series by Jim Butcher, just dropped recently, and I'm already done with it. Book 16, that says a lot, and I am steeped in this. I've read all of the books. I actually read most of them on paper. Ooh. But I listened to this one on audiobook, and It was good. So if you don't know anything about Dresden Files, it is a detective noir style series that focuses on a wizard detective.
Okay.
So
does that mean he's a detective that's a wizard, or does that mean he's a detective that detects wizards?
Oh, good question. He is a detective that is a wizard.
Okay.
And so this series is it's steeped in tropes for the noir style, but it also it kind of I'm not going to try to say that this is the like quintessential urban fantasy, but urban fantasy is a subgenre,
right?
And this is one of the most popular urban fantasies. And Harry Dresden is this. It's written in first person, so everything is told to you by Harry, and it's all from his perspective, and he's this sarcastic, intelligent, kind of a dry humor guy, and he is a wizard, and there's a group of wizards, a council of wizards that he is a member of, and in the beginning of the series he's kind of on the outs with them, and then things move forward from there. But sort of the standard setup for a detective novel, and in this case an urban fantasy novel, is there's a problem, and then there's another problem, and then there's usually like another problem, and they're in different arenas. Like there's a case to solve, and then there's an interpersonal problem, and then usually in Harry Dresden's world there's a supernatural problem. And so this book does not diverge from that formula, but it is different in the fact that this is not a put all the toys back in the box book like many of them are. Like the first, 8 or 10, at the end of the book, the beginning of the next book, it will be Harry taking a case. In this book, it's actually kind of a two-parter because it was all of the buildup and some of the supernatural problems and some of the personal problems, but the huge climax, like the huge big bad behind all of the nastiness, is only revealed in the last 3 or 4 chapters, and it's like a 36 chapter book, 35 chapter, something like that. And it sets it up for a huge conflict for the next book, which is called Battleground, which is releasing in, I believe, September. I've already pre-ordered it.
Okay, so it's coming quickly.
Yeah, it seemed to me like this was sort of a George Martin situation where he was writing the book and it got so long he had to split it.
Yeah, and probably contractually he owes them a certain number of books, and it's like this counts as a book at this point. So, well,
he's already said that this series is going to be a 25-book series. He's going to write 22 novels that are standard Dresden novels, and then the last 3 will be a trilogy that is an epic scale finale that's meant to be read in rapid succession.
And you said this was book 17?
16. And 17
and
is
17 is coming in September.
Yeah.
So we're not, we haven't hit 20 yet, but we still got a ways to go.
Well, and Butcher puts out books relatively quickly because during this time that he's published 16 books in this series, and the 17th is already written, he published a 6-book series, I believe it's called the Codex Alera. And then he started another series, and Codex Alera is a fantasy series. And then he also started a new series where there's only one called something Aeronaut Windlass. I know someone knows. It's a steampunk series, and I'm not really into steampunk. I feel like maybe I'm just too old for it to click with me. But
it's definitely for people our age.
Is it for people our age?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you look, if there's a guy with a bowler hat and goggles on it, he's definitely in his 40s.
Or I don't know. I know a lot of those people, and they're because I mean, maybe I shouldn't reveal this because it's too embarrassing. But I've been a LARPer for a long time.
There's heavy crossover.
Yeah, well, and most of the people who do the steampunk stuff, and like I was buddies with a guy named Tobias who was on like the steampunk reality show, and he's in his 20s.
Okay,
and most of them who like wear those cool costumes and do the crafting are like in their 30s.
You said cool without making quotes with your hands.
Yeah, because they're awesome craftsmen and it's all handmade. And I'm not going to diminish the craftsmanship of the people. And I like them. They're cool people. They're nice. Yeah. I just don't love the aesthetic. I'm way more 90s, like gothic industrial. Like I like that look.
I mean, honestly, I do kind of like the steampunk aesthetic, and any sort of mocking that I'm doing is very tongue in cheek, because I'm not one to yuck your yum. Like I'm not going.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I don't like to shit on stuff that other people are into.
Yeah, I try not to in a public way or to their face or whatever. I may have discussions with my friends that I'm like, man, I don't get that. That just looks lame to me. But if you're loving it, you're loving it, and that's cool. I'm always of the opinion of let people like things.
Yes, totally.
Because like I like things that other people hate. Like I play Warhammer 40K. It's like I spent hundreds of dollars on 28mm figures and paints to paint them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like the Dresden Files, and that's okay. And one of the fair criticisms that I've heard of it is that it's written from a Gen X man's perspective, so it is inherently somewhat sexist.
Yeah, fair, I guess.
And that's fair. It's written from the perspective of a cisgendered hetero man who likes ladies, and so sometimes he talks about a woman in a way that talks about how she looks, and maybe that's not totally cool. That's not how you should talk about people, but this is his inner monologue, and it's meant to be literally inside his head. Yeah. So it's maybe not the perfect series for someone who that would piss off. But if you're okay with understanding how does this guy tick inside, what is he thinking, that's cool. Because maybe his actions sometimes are a little white knight, like I will rescue you, because ultimately he has a heart of gold. He's a bit of a paladin at heart. And maybe that's not cool, that, you know, maybe they should rescue themselves. They should be their own hero. But this is the story of Harry, and Harry's a paladin.
Just my 2 cents on that is every story doesn't have to be everything. I think the problem that you get into with representation is not that there's inherently something wrong with stories that are from a man's point of view. It's just that that's so much of what we get is only stories that are from not just a man, but only stories are from this type of man's point of view. And so people feel like, God, another tough as nails detective objectifying women or whatever, whatever the trope is. There's a lot of those things. So it's not that there's something inherently bad with this. It's more just people want diversity in the market. I'm just I was not being a great listener to you because I was looking up stuff about the Dresden Files. And because you've been a fan of this for a long time.
Book 3 came out. My buddy Jeff, he was like, dude, you should read these. You're going to love it. I know what you like, and you'll like this. And I read it, and admittedly, book 1, it was his first book that he got published, and it's not written at the same high level of quality that the newer ones are. It's fairly formulaic detective noir by the numbers that just adds the twist of but a wizard. But by the time he makes it to book 5, he's in full swing. He's good.
Yeah, he's found
Jim Butcher is awesome.
Found the groove.
Yeah.
What about the TV show? Because I really like who is that? Paul Blackthorne that plays the character Harry Dresden in the TV show. I like him as an actor. Is that show worth watching?
It's not. And
okay.
I hate to say that because I liked it when it came out, but I've gone back and I've revisited it, and they changed too much. They really made it. It really feels like low budget, not awesome.
Well, yeah, so it's a sci-fi network show, and I group actors into these places where they film shows. Like there's New York actors, and there's LA actors, and there's Vancouver actors.
Okay.
And Paul Blackthorne is a Vancouver actor. Like you see him on CW shows.
Yeah, for sure. And that TV show did not get the old guard treatment with, $70 million, big budget, awesome.
Yeah.
It's not that good. And they really trimmed a lot. It almost felt like they tried to make it a greatest hits, like what are the coolest things.
Okay.
And it didn't really translate to me. But I guess, my overall wrap-up of this particular book is that, of course, I'm going to read the next, and of course, I'm going to read the next, and so on. This was good, despite the lack of resolution. You got touchbacks on all these different characters that you really like Michael and Molly Carpenter, and all of these people who you've spent entire books where they were the other main character, where he was doing stuff with them. They kind of show their faces again, and Thomas is in this book big time, and I'm a huge fan of that character. Also, if you're a Dresden fan, so you'll know who these people are. I'm a big Molly fan, and I'm a big Thomas fan. So if you know who those people are and you like them, you're cool.
Awesome.
Also, Ramirez is really cool too. But anyways, this was good, despite it being cut in half. But I think that it could have been just a super book and just put it all together. But I was satisfied at the end of it, and it just made me want more.
Yeah.
At least he didn't pull a Martin where it leaves you on a cliffhanger and makes you wait several years. He's literally, they release it, and then the resolution is in 2 months.
Now, is there something special, because you're talking the audiobook, is there something special about the audiobook, like as far as does it have just one narrator, or does
one
it have
narrator for the whole series? And I should have written his name down, I really didn't, but he's the guy who played Spike on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And he's amazing, and he is the voice of Harry Dresden. I've listened to, now I read the first ones all by the book, by paper, but I've now gone back and I've listened to all of them on audio, and he narrates them all. He's really special. Does the dry sardonic wit. Harry gets beat up a lot. He loses a lot of fights. He is not the tough as nails guy who always comes out on top. He is the guy who gets beat down a lot, and the narration really adds to that and makes
James
it awesome.
Marsters.
Yeah, that's it. James Marsters. He's great. He is perfect for this, and I'm glad he's making a good living off this, because I haven't really seen him on the screen in a while.
Did you tangent? Did you see? Because it's become everyone dishes the tea on Joss Whedon time in Nerd Zone. And did you see the stuff like the Joss Whedon threatened him when his character became popular on Buffy?
No, what's that all about?
Joss Whedon's a dick. That's what that's about.
He's also a hack. I'm sorry if you love his work.
He
does one thing well.
We try to slander Joss Whedon every other episode.
Yeah.
So
let's not do this every episode.
Yeah. Okay, well, Dresden Files Book 17 sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. 16 was awesome, and I'm a heavy recommender of this. And if you are not interested in slogging through an entire series, you can pick up any of the books all the way up until about 10 and just read it a la carte. And just go ahead if you're curious. It's worth it.
Did you, because when I was doing research here, did you happen to read any of the graphic novels from Dynamite?
No graphic novels.
Okay.
Just audiobooks and paper books.
Because it seems, at least on my cursory information here, that there's some content that's only in the comics.
Why'd you tell me that?
Well, I think we've covered all we want to cover, so that brings us to the call to action.
All right. Well, subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher, and rate us generously. A 5-star review costs you nothing, but means everything to us.
all across the metaverse. You can find us as Deep Dive the Meta. We're Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the regular places, but I want to spotlight the Tumblr and the Pinterest because you're not following those pages.
Yeah, nobody is.
So if you want to see the images that we talked about in this particular podcast, please go follow the Tumblr and the Pinterest.
Well, I guess this is really goodbye.
Don't say goodbye. Say good journey.